Hi, everybody. Welcome to our monthly talk at the Sasse Museum of Art. And this month we're talking about just the concept of creativity, which I think is just wonderful. And I just looking around the room here, everyone in here is creative. So rather than just having questions and answers, maybe we can have a full conversation with everyone in here. It's not as though we have uncreative people here, and I'm sure you all have ideas. So like you do, the artists who are scheduled to be here, Wendy, Chess, Marianne, and Angelina, if you could introduce yourselves and just who you are and what you do, and then I'll start with questions. So maybe we'll start with Wendy.
Okay, I'm Wendy Weidel-Wolf. I am a painter primarily. I also do collages, real quick collages. They sort of keep me agile creatively because the paintings take a long time and a completely different mindset. So I enjoy that contrast in what I do. That's basically what I do.
All right. Marianne.
Okay, my name's Marianne Prock, and I'm an abstract sculptor and painter. I also do a lot of sketching as well. And I've been working with the medium of clay for almost 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I have an interest in figurative work and a curiosity. And I'm fascinated by the fact that you can take I can take clay and create figures that have personalities, different personalities and emotion, and you know, that's what I do. And then the paintings are abstract and somewhat figurative, and so that's it.
Great. Chess.
Hi, I'm Chess Brodnick. I am an artist and a psychotherapist. I treat people with severe psychosis, and I am an artist. And here is an example of what I'm working on. This is from my sketchbook. I have a sketchbook where I create these pieces and then blow them up and make large paintings in either oil paint. There's another one. And another one. I have hundreds of these, and I have some very large pieces, about 5 feet, with Sumi-E ink. And my work is all about experiences that I've had, emotional and psychological experiences, and doing them in a figurative way, which sort of illuminates the internal process of a person.
Okay, great, thank you. Angelina, are you able to communicate with us? Are you able to hear us?
Your mic's off.
Yeah, your mic is off if you're speaking. Okay, maybe she'll be able to come on a little later. Sometimes Zoom is a wonderful blessing and a horrible curse at the same time. We have a hard time with and okay, so maybe we'll start here. You know, we had a little bit of a pre-interview the other day, and Marianne and I were talking for a long time about the concept of joy. And I think that's a really great place to start, especially this time of season where we can sometimes feel a lack of joy. And I'm wondering, Marianne, if you could talk we'll start off very broadly about the concept of creativity and joy. If you could talk about that, and what your process is to achieve that.
Well, I work intuitively, and there's so much involved in creating a piece of sculpture. It's I'm taking ideas and feelings and everything from my past, from experience as a child, from all different areas at once. I'm intuitive, but I'm also very cognitive about what I'm doing, and the joy is that deep feeling of satisfaction and love of what I'm doing, and it's a very powerful emotion. And I was thinking about the idea of Christmas too, and that well, that's strange to put it with art and creativity and then Christmas, but really there is a connection there, because Christmas is very much about emotion, and so is working at my work, and about joy and about connection and all those good things. So
So it's about joy, but does it also foster joy?
oh yes, definitely, yeah. I mean, with the work, it fosters joy, to me, and also to those that are experiencing it. For the most part, that they have a reaction of joy and of pleasure and curiosity, which is wonderful too. That each side of the piece is quite different, and they're just, each one is very unique from the next, and that source of joy.
That's interesting to me. And I'm thinking right now about Chess, who is working with trauma a lot of the time. I know in your work, I don't know if that's your creative work as well, if you are working through trauma or you're working toward joy, or if that is necessarily at odds.
Or you're talking about my psychotherapy work or my artistic work?
Let's talk about artistic first.
Okay, right. Well, no, it's basically, it's connected with my psychotherapy in that I'm dealing with people who are experiencing a lot of trauma, and this sort of bombards me. And so when I come home and I sit in front of the mirror to create something, I'm sort of tapping into that, looking at the mirror, turning my face in different directions to sort of bring different emotions out. But the joy for me is that actual struggle to put it down on paper, to make one line work into another, to take something that a blank page and make something there. And the finished product gives me an awful lot of joy. It's not so much the communication of joy in my work, although some of the things that I have are pretty upbeat and pretty happy, but it's the actual process. It's the creativity. It's the working through that and making a product that I'm proud of.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of your work right now, and I'll share it. And I can see, that it's clearly not an expression of joy there.
No.
But it seems to me that, releasing this, there's some degree of joy as well.
Yeah, well, again, when I'm doing that, I'm thinking it and I'm feeling what I'm doing. And it's not so much that I'm trying to strive towards joy. I'm striving for the expression and the creativity and the product there. The joy comes in manipulating the paint or the charcoal and making something there, taking something that's not there and making it there. That to me is the joy in creativity.
Mm. That's great. And Wendy, I wonder if you have any, if your process is joyful in the same way, or if it's something else.
Well, I love to work. That's an umbrella emotion that I feel when I get to work in the studio. I would say that I try to make joyful things, but there's always kind of a melancholy tone to a lot of it that I don't even realize is there until people point it out to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at this piece right here. Well, the melancholy through that is just exceptional and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I tried to make the sun like almost like the way a child would make a sun with the rays, going from the center all the directions.
Yeah.
But I think that the fact that I don't put leaves on too many trees is probably kind of melancholy. But color is really important to me, and I find a lot of joy in that, just the beauty of color.
Mm.
And just the privilege of being an artist is a joyful thing. When you feel like that's what you've been called to do, it's like, wow, I'm actually doing this.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and I think that's a great place for us to start. I think it's a great thing to celebrate what we do as artists, whatever field we're in. But I think it also would be really interesting, Chess, to get a psychological grounding in what creativity is. Why are we driven to this? What is it? Is it a reaction to something? What is creativity?
Well, I think a lot of psychological writing about creativity has to do with creating product and problem solving. And I tend to differ from that because it gets a little bit boring. I mean, psychologists will say that there are two types of personalities that are creative personalities. And that would be a type A personality, somebody who is very extroverted, and the introvert. And the extrovert deals with flexibility. They're able to sort of shift gears fairly quickly. And the introvert is more persistent to push something through. I think I'm a bit of both. And so I don't think you can quantify it in that fashion. I don't think that creativity can be defined in that way. I find creativity to be motion, to be action. It's the lack of passivity. It's moving forward. It used to be thought that creativity was a right brain thing, neurologically, but they're finding that that's not exactly true, that there are many neural pathways, and there's a sort of a blanket pathway that causes creativity. So what causes somebody to be creativity? Many things. I think that some people are just born to do it. Some people are pushed into it by sociological or family events. Some people have an interest and push it and then discover it as they're going. But as you said in the beginning, we're all creative. I mean, we grow up with creativity. When we're little children, we try to get out of trouble and we make a lie to sort of save ourselves. That's creativity. So I think all of us here could define creativity much better than from a psychoanalytic or psychological viewpoint.
Why do you think if we don't move away from it, there are a lot of people who say they've moved away from creativity. Why do you think people make that move? What is it about us as we grow older?
That we move away from? I think that life sort of intervenes and we are sort of socialized, at least in this country and in the Western world, for success, monetary success, and to have a really good career. And I think people don't see that you can have all those things and have a great deal of creativity with it. But the focus changes. I think that we're socialized to go to school, to get our good grades, and to get a good job. And everything else is sort of play. Or if you're doing that, you're not an adult. You're not mature. You're doing childish things, and that's a bit absurd.
Are you saying it's okay to do childish things?
Absolutely. I wouldn't do anything but be childish and childlike. I love it.
That's great. I think all three of you said that you're working in multiple types of, and Angelina, if you get, are you able to hear us, please jump in. You're working in multiple types of media. And I'm wondering if there's a creative difference. Like Wendy, you were talking about you work in collage very quickly, and then you take a long time with the others.
Mhm.
So I wonder if you could talk about, is there a difference in that creativity?
Yeah, the collages, I don't pressure myself to succeed with them. It can be really bad. I put it on Instagram anyway. Like, okay, I'd like everyone to think I'm this great artist, but I'm just going to allow myself to fail with the collages. Work quickly, make quick aesthetic decisions. Try to limit myself. Don't put too much time into it, and move on. Whereas the paintings, I plan for sometimes conceptually for a long, long time before I even start them. And they tend to be very intense, and I use small brushes. So a painting can take like 6 months for me sometimes. But they're like apples and oranges, and I really enjoy them both.
Yeah, one of the basic tenets of writing is that you have to give yourself the freedom to write a really shitty first draft. It has to be awful. And I suppose you're getting that through your collage work.
Yeah. But every once I have a goal of coming up with 100 of them, quick, and I call them quick collages. And I'm figuring, okay, out of 100 quick collages, I bet I'll have 7 or 8 or 9 that will be good. And I'm hoping I'll have an opportunity to exhibit them when this project's over. I'm on number 52 right now.
Wow. How long has that taken you?
This year.
Oh.
Yeah, about every other week. I wish I could make one every week, but I have to work a job too.
I think somebody was trying to ask a question. I cut them off. Did anybody say anything? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I do want to respond to the left and right blend. right brain connection, and in terms of the creativity, it just reminds me there's a one, not experiment, but somebody actually experiencing a blade cutting, between our left brain and the right brain. There's a little tiny gap in between. And so there was a miracle thing that a person got a blade cutting side of the brain, but doesn't really, because it's perfectly fit in the gap, so it doesn't hurt, damage any brain cells at all. But it kind of cut through and the gap, and it kind of cut the left brain and the right brain separate, and there's no connection in between the left brain and the right brain. And so they did this experiment to this person. They gave him a paper and they put a house on the left side of the paper and let this person cover the left eye. And the person said there's no house or any image on the paper, even though he can see the whole blank paper. And then they asked the person to cover the right side eye, and still the house is on the left side. And he said, oh, now I see it. So I do believe that, our conscious is based on this connection of left and right side of brain. It's not like the creativity is not only dwelling in our right side of the brain. We're using our sense as well in terms of creating things. So it just kind of reminds me that, and how interesting the artworks are connecting with the logic as well.
Yeah, I wonder if Chess, if you have anything. There are volumes of things that I don't know about psychology, reams and reams. But I've heard that this idea of the left brain being purely, that idea is kind of going away, and there's creativity and logic seems to be all parts of our hemisphere. Am I correct about that?
No, you're absolutely correct. And the brain doesn't work in sort of segments. It's a whole piece. And you can damage certain areas, and other areas can sort of take over to a degree. So it's not left, right. I don't know how that concept came in. There's a lot of things and theories in psychology and understanding of the brain that's all very new. Neural brain mapping is in its infancy. We don't know very much at all about it. It's been speculation. And now with MRIs and other kinds of things, they're starting to learn a bit more. So it's going to take some time. Maybe one day we'll find it out. But I think the whole thing works as a whole. It's a whole gestalt. It's one piece, and one piece influences another, and the other influences another, and it's all there working at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said earlier that, and I meant to follow up with it earlier, but that creativity is about movement and going forward. And
yes.
What if that's do you see that as a force of fighting like banality or boredom? As creativity is that thing that we could do to fight that I don't know. I see banality or thinking of things as banal as sort of a kind of evil. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, for many people, that certainly would be. I never get bored. I'm not able to be bored. There's always something to do, something to catch my attention. But many people need a stimulus to sort of do that, to get rid of the boredom. And yes, that definitely is something there. For me, creativity is something that's sort of like a fire inside, and it has to come out. It's not something that I use to mollify myself. It's a force inside me, and I just can't deny it. It's there, and I have to do it. It's almost like an obsession.
So then, while you might be working in similar themes, you're always doing something new.
Yes.
Okay.
Always something new.
And I wonder if you can characterize that. In what way is it new? How are you creating something new if you're working? You have a lot of faces in your work.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you could say, okay, there's a general theme, but each one is a little bit different. Each one is sort of mapping a different experience. So one line is a little bit different from another. An expression is a little bit different. Every time I sit down, it's something new. And it always comes out a little bit different. If you looked at the 300 sketches that I have, you'd find differences in all of them.
Yeah, I'm seeing a similar expression on these faces, but there's also difference.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
How did you make the textures on the background? Do you use printmaking?
No, it's all done with brush.
Mm,
Wow.
very interesting.
There's no stencils in the I can't think anymore piece. It looks like
No.
it's-
No, you're right. There are, there are letter stencils that I've traced through there. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
that would help speed things up a bit, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, if you
Little
had
bit,
freehand
yes.
that, well,
Right.
that's great. Well, let's think then of Marianne, and I wonder if you have the same sort of concept of creativity as moving forward, and how that affects what you're doing here.
Movement is critical. I mean, it's especially well with both painting and sculpture, and my passion is incredible. I just am very happy that I can get up every day and do what I love. I mean, and I don't run out of ideas. Somehow it's just keeps evolving and growing and transitioning.
Mhm.
The two, well, this is one sculpture and it's another, but front and back. But the one on the right is a small maquette for a large outdoor sculpture. My pieces range from about 2 feet to 8 or 9 feet tall. So,
What are you trying to capture here?
the strength and yet femininity of the female form, that women are very powerful and strong and yet feminine, and that's what I'm kind of portraying in these pieces. Strength in them. That the raw silk piece is on the left is obviously very sensuous and soft, but at the same time very powerful. The raw silk, the glaze reminded me of the raw silk, and I think the name also portrays something kind of sexual, or just passionate. So, and then the one on the
your work shows a great deal of strength. It's very impressive. I mean, I can really see all from the different angles, all the stuff that's happening inside you when you're putting it down there, and your paintings as well. Lots of wonderful flow and color movement, and it's just sort of like emotion exploding on your canvas. So it's beautiful work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that from you.
That's great. And Wendy, I wonder if you can talk about the concept of moving forward and movement as well in your work.
I like the idea that I had an instructor in art school who came into the class one day, and some students weren't getting work done, and he says, these paintings aren't going to paint themselves. But and you just got to keep moving, forward and finishing up a series and then starting another one, and that element of risk before you're about to dive into a whole new lake. It's a little scary, but it's also you just never know what's going to come up next. And that's exciting.
Well, I'm looking at these top 3 pictures here, and they're all variations on the theme. It's light as it affects a bare tree, and they seem to be. You're moving toward different concepts. I don't know which is first, second, or third in terms of chronology, but there definitely seems to be. You're saying new things. You're looking at the world in a different way, and especially that house. We're seeing only half the house. That seems to be a really important statement here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said that's interesting that you said that. I haven't thought of that. Yeah, I
think it's a
I
tree.
like to have a bit of sort of a slight Americana kind of the simplicity of a simple home, the idea of a shelter, that's what that painting is about. And then the two paintings on the left, it's much broader themes. It's day and night. I wanted to simplify the idea, day and night, and really and use the idea of the leafless trees in that image, those images.
Your work is very direct and honest. I mean, it really hits you when you look at it. You see it right away. Great impact.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, so I want to open up to anybody who has any questions. I've got more to follow up, but I don't want to hog the stage here.
Do you get, Wendy, do you get inspirations from surrealism?
I do, but at the same time, I try to stay away from it. European surrealism, like Max Ernst and Salvador Dali, those guys, I can't relate to them at all. It's almost too disparate. The images are too disparate. I really want images to be like Hal said. I think it was Hal said. I want a certain honesty. A lot of my ideas come from my childhood in the place where I grew up, where I had the privilege of really, really being sort of in the backwoods, and I think a part of me really longs for that experience, and I get that experience by making my paintings.
Right. So from the memories.
Yeah, memory is a big part of it.
Yeah, that's sweet.
But it's also a love of simplicity. Just kind of like I have a real longing to simplify my life all the time. It's very hard to do. And it's an ongoing challenge. And my paintings are kind of about simple ideas: a simple house, a simple tree, a simple quilt, a simple, just a simple image, but painted very intently. If you could see them live, you would see that the brushstrokes are very small and they're very intense. There's kind of a paradox in
That's really interesting. And it seems to me that there's two things we're dealing with creatively. It's the problems of the past and the problems of now, right? And which makes creativity and art always necessary. And do you find that true? Are you reacting to the problems of now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think we don't get to live simple lives anymore. We go to the bank and it's very complicated. You go to I don't know, lower your mortgage rate. It's very complicated. Everything is like layered, bureaucratic layers. And it makes me sad how complicated things are for people. I saw my dad going through it when he was dying, and he was having to do all this bureaucratic paperwork and stuff, and the poor guy wasn't even able to just rest.
Oh, that's interesting. And so it's a longing for simplicity. For you, it's both present and past. It sounds like.
Yeah. Trying to be honest about now, but yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
I've been watching Marianne nod in agreement. I think if that's what you're doing as well.
Well, empathy, it was feeling what you're feeling, and I agree, and I feel some of that. Yeah, it's just difficult times right now.
And there's a clarity in that.
What to believe.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying, John?
Well, I was saying there's a clarity, not a simplicity, but a clarity in the sculpture that's right behind your head. Right. It seems to me that's saying something definitive in a world that is not always definitive.
Yeah, I love simplicity as well, and shapes and line color, and this piece I did in 1994, I think, but one of my favorites.
Yeah. I miss 1994.
You miss it or you missed it?
Oh, no, I was definitely there. Long hair and unstructured sweaters.
Oh,
Chess, we're talking about, I'm wondering, I'm sorry to pick on you as a psychologist, but, you're our in-room expert, I think. And this idea of dealing with the present and creativity is necessary for dealing with the now. I'm wondering if you can talk about that.
Well, I live in the now pretty much. I mean, certainly I have memories and I look forward to the future, but I don't think too much about the future. I'm really centered on what's happening right now. And when I'm in the now, especially when I'm in front of my easel and I'm working, I'm so present. And it's this amazing thing. I kind of leave my body, as it were, just focused on what I'm doing. And that just sort of brings up a lot of ability to sort of manifest what's happening inside of me and deal with it in a new and different way. I'm looking at things from different perspectives when I'm creating, and I'm able to look at it in ways that maybe I didn't see while the event was happening. And that's kind of interesting to me. So then I can sort of relive the experience, put it down on paper, and gain more insight from it. That's not my motivation, but that's a byproduct of it. And that's kind of fascinating and interesting to me. And I think that creative people and any kind of creative endeavor sort of brings you there. You have to start and do in the now, but it brings you to a place that's unexpected. And that to me is kind of fascinating.
Are you talking about entering a state of flow?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you describe that to us? What cycle? I mean, there's different brain activity, I think, happening at that moment.
Yeah, and I don't know the specifics of the biochemical nature of it, but for me, it's a hyper focus. When I was younger, I used to do a lot of sports car racing, and I was a pretty active surfer and as an artist. And those three events, you're so focused on the now that everything else is extraneous. And you are just plugged in. Every nerve, every fiber is focused on exactly what you're doing. With race car driving and surfing, especially surfing big waves, you have to be focused or you're going to get yourself into trouble. With art, for me, it's that same focus, but there's no danger there. So there's a freedom to sort of go deeper inside myself while I'm in that now and see things that I'm not really dealing with as I'm going through my daily life. And that to me is pretty fascinating. I think that all of you artists and writers, you know what I'm talking about. When you're working, you're focused and everything else, troubles go away, everything disappears, and you're working and you're moving forward and you're creating.
So as opposed to triaging every moment so that we're productive in some sort of abstract way, you are entering into the real you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Facing myself, really facing myself. And that's, to me, that's not, it used to be frightening, but now it isn't. Now it's sort of something that I want to do. I want to look at myself as I'm aging out, coming to the end of things. I want to know myself and I want to change as I'm growing. I want to adapt and not just be stagnant. And so that's all of this, especially with my art, is forcing me to look at areas that I've neglected and to bring them out and to live them.
I'm going to ask a personal question, and you can refuse to answer, and I won't be offended. But I'm just wondering, you're going into these new places. What kind of new places are these that you're living?
Facing fears, facing sort of the end of my life. I don't know when that's going to be, and I'm not being morbid there, but at 72, I know that there's going to be an end. And I'm not looking forward to that end. I want to live and I want to experience more and I want to do more in the time that I have left. So I'm facing my fears. I'm facing my regrets and trying to see what those regrets did to me and what I can do to sort of not do the mistakes that I made before. And being in the now and being able to go deeper allows me to do that. It allows me to see my flaws and to really look at my flaws in a pretty deep way and use the flaws. I mean, I think that my flaws can be helpful to me because they help me to find limits. I don't like limits, but my flaws are limits. And I then have the chance to push those forward or accept what they are. So I'm dealing with acceptance as well. And acceptance is kind of freeing for me. This is my limit. This is as far as I can go here. And that's okay. I pushed it and I've done it in a kind of an honest way. So these are the things that I'm grappling with. In art brings that to me to focus for me, and the paintings that I'm creating are about that. They're really looking at sort of soul searching moments.
Mm, mm. Oh, Wendy, when I'm sure you enter that moment of flow as well. I'm wondering if you have a similar kind of reaction.
Well, all I know is I can paint for 3-4 hours and the time can go just like that, you know. The depth of concentration and for me, the focus is more focusing on technical things, how to like problem solving. That was brought up earlier too, you know, problem solving in a painting. And there's always this period of in the painting, like in the middle of the painting where I think I'm totally screwing it up, blowing, this is going to be bad. I should just throw it away now. And it's interesting how you work through that, through lots of, with that concentration and that depth, and you come out the other end. And I would say about 90% of the time I'm satisfied with the work.
I can totally relate to that. I
Yeah.
can totally relate where you're sort of messing it up, and that focus is what sort of gets you through it. Yes,
Right.
I know. You want to tear your hair, you want to rip it up, but I don't want it. I want to fix it.
Yeah, but it's healthy because you're taking risks. And I think
Absolutely.
art needs to have risks. Interesting.
Absolutely. I love to live on the edge, and that's what it's all about. And definitely trying something new and pushing it. That's what really brings me to the now. That's what really brings me to myself. Risks.
Hmm. Risks in terms of your emotion or in terms of technique?
Both. Absolutely both. It's interwoven. I don't separate that. My technique and when I'm working on a painting and I'm really trying to get it right, that's just as wrapped up with the emotions, because it's the emotions I'm trying to portray, and it's the technique that's going to get me there. So it's never separated, and I'm doing it not always thinking about it. It's sort of like on automatic, as it were, but I'm conscious of it. And so, you know, my brain kind of splits. I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and my brain is looking at it and problem solving, and all these things are going on in me at all the same time. I'm pretty good at shifting gears with my focus.
And that's great. And Marianne, I'm wondering about how your experience with entering this place of flow.
Well, it's different with painting and sculpture, because the sculpture is, you know, I have to plan as I go along, or there's certain things that I have to do that to make it work. But I'm always trying to do something a little different and experimenting with, you know, the surface treatments and whatever. But when I'm working, I just go into this like state of just assuredness that, you know, things are working like they should be, you know, and I just go with things, and I know that this line, you know, that I'm doing on the sculpture is going to come back around at the right place, and things, you know, when I'm in the moment and fully myself and not thinking about other things or just totally focused, then the work just comes together, and it's just a beautiful experience. You know, it's hard to explain, but you know, just, you know, and I'll painting and a painting like the one on the wall back here, there's so much going on, but I can see one little fleck that, you know, is on the painting, you know, just, oh, that's, you know, a piece of dirt or something, I don't know, but you know, there's so much going on, and yet, you know, I'm aware of the whole thing. Just anyway, does that make sense? No.
Makes perfect sense. And I certainly understand what you're talking about the flow of line, because for me, I'll start in one portion that, and there's a line that has to come off that. And that line suggests something, it usually suggests the next thing. And then it suggests another thing. And then there's a compositional flow. And that's what's directing one's eye around the piece. And I'm sort of conscious of that.
Right.
But it's so cool because you're inventing it as you go along. And with you and your sculpture, you're doing it in 3 dimensions. That's difficult. I have no clue how you do that. And it's very impressive.
Each makes sense and has to relate to the next. And,
Yes.
and most of my pictures don't have a front and back. There are 2 fronts to them. But,
Right.
you know, they're different but related. And there's so many things that go on to creating the sculptures that you're just not aware of, you know, when you look at, you know, a finished piece.
That's right. It's that balancing act when you're doing it.
Exactly. And the line work, I love line, and it's important in my paintings, drawings, of course, and then sculpture. But that contains the glaze as well, you know, so it has a practical too. But I have to visualize what the areas are going to look like later on, you know, when they're glazed, or, you know, whether I use cold colors or glazes. I have to really think ahead, but be in the moment. And, you know, it's interesting, and it's very stimulating, and it's like magical kind of as well. It's just,
Yeah, it is very magical. And that's the flow that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's being in the moment. And yeah, I know you're thinking about what you're doing at the moment, but you're looking sort of down the road at the finished piece. You have to sort of balance all that together. And I'm impressed with all of us being able to do that. It's that sort of juggling act that creativity is really all about for me. And I think for all of you as well.
Interesting. So you're using a new technique. Does that open up the possibility of a new emotional exploration for yourself?
It can, absolutely, because I'm learning the technique, and that's going to push me. I have to focus on the technique and what I'm trying to say as well.
So the 3 of you, do you actively seek out new techniques, new ways of exploring this thing? Or Wendy, you're nodding.
Yeah, I think always. Yeah, new surfaces, new ways of creating space, textures, concepts, you know, new concepts that goals to achieve in actually getting to the point, making the time to actually take those concepts and make them paintings.
No.
Yeah, it's always, I think a lot of artists feel like you have 1,000 ideas, but you get to do maybe 5 or 10, you know?
Is there any degree to which your material can limit what it is that you can say, what it is that you can think, what it is that you can do with art?
Not for me, no. It's the material and the understanding of the material that pushes it forward. And I'm always learning. I mean, it's never static. And I think that I've got a long way to go before I can really be good and feel like I'm good. And that's interesting too, because there's no stopping point. It's going to keep pushing and keep moving forward.
Okay, that's great. Let me open this up again for questions. Again, I've been yakking a lot.
I'd like to know what some of you writers out there are thinking about creativity, and because it's a similar process, although you're dealing with words and it's much more difficult. At least I would think so. But I'd love to hear your opinions on it.
Well, okay, so I'm a writer, and I feel I have almost zero visual imagination. I think entirely in words, and it's very difficult for me to. I watch my wife do art. You can see her art right down the ginkgo leaf. It's my wife's art. And it's very, very difficult for me to visualize that way. So that writing is just a way of accessing what's buried deep inside me, very much like what you're talking about. You're talking about materials. I'm thinking about different forms. So like a sestina is all about elegy. A sonnet is about a a clear statement, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of losing yourself to the language. There's an emotional reaction to sound, so that you have your deep emotions happen way down here, right? And you can think of the word love versus lust. Lust exists only here. Love extends through it engages both your forward and your deeper throat. It goes all the way up and down, and it creates a emotion. Usually you're going to feel large emotions in the words that happen here. So there's a not a subconscious but a physical element to writing that can bring out things that you didn't realize you were understanding. And so in that way, that's how we enter flow, especially in poetry. We're playing with those sound devices and going to those places. So if you've ever written a unsatisfying sonnet, which most people have, probably it's because you're trying to control it too much, right? Whereas the sonnet should draw ideas out of you as opposed to you placing ideas onto it. It's actually a free verse poem. You're placing your ideas on top of that. So that's kind of how you enter flow with writing, is just kind of relax and let the form do what it's going to do, and it draws out things from you that you didn't really understand that you thought. So yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I think that's the way it is with materials too for a visual artist. A lot of people think that you've got this idea that you're trying to get across through your paint or your paper or your ink, but the materials suggest things in themselves, just like what you said about like a sonnet will you don't bring the idea to the sonnet, you let the idea come out of the sonnet. Is that what you meant to say? Or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And so, yeah, so if you have the idea for a poem, you cannot write the sonnet because it's going to, the form's going to ruin it, as opposed to the form drawing it out. And that's really interesting. So it sounds to me like, Wendy, that like, you're not looking to make a statement, you're trying to figure out what it is that you think. And that's it.
I love the new thoughts that the materials bring to me, Yeah. And then the finished product, then people look at it and they come up with ideas that I'd never thought of. And I love that.
Well, that's great. That's the two-way conversation between art and artists, right? You create the image and we place meaning upon it. So, what materials do you work with, Wendy?
Well, I work with oil paint, in about 20 by 20 inch paintings. I just did a large one of a wildfire. I just did this. This is a collage I just did this week of Christmas. And this is the dove of the Holy Spirit. And can you see it? No, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
This was just a kind of a crummy collage that I cut up because I didn't like it and put it in a composition that was kind of awkward. And I'm still developing the drawing around it. You see these black lines?
Yeah.
I'm developing it still. So this is kind of what I do. And this is what I call a quick collage.
Nice. Very nice.
And Andrea asked, could you please ask Marianne what kind of material she uses for her sculpture?
Oh, they're made of clay, a stoneware clay that is specially formulated for large scale sculpture. And they're all hand built with slabs. They have a slab roller, and I get 25-pound bags of clay and just start rolling the slabs and then building up. They don't have armatures or anything inside. They're hollow. And just from working all these years with clay, I'm able to just move the clay up and just form them and fairly quickly. And it's a wonderful experience to move the clay.
Do you have a kiln?
Yeah. Yeah, one kiln, like 30 years old.
Are the glazes, obviously, they're low fire glazes because they're so bright?
Yeah, right. Yeah, reds are just phenomenal. And well, anyway, so yeah. I love the glazing, and it's so permanent. The glazes, last forever. The paint will too, but
You don't fade, huh?
no. So
Okay, maybe this is a great time to ask kind of an ending up kind of question. Like the advice that you can give to help people find creativity is important. Help people find creativity in themselves. How do we as just as human beings move forward, and what can creativity give to us?
I would say to play and to let yourself go, and to just be aware of the things that really interest you, and that you have a passion or an interest in, and go with it, and just be playful, and not don't judge yourself too much. Just get into that mind space of maybe a child or just somebody that's curious. That makes sense.
That's great.
I
No,
agree. I agree with
oh.
the concept of play. I mean, I think that play is essential to sort of bring out your creativity. Don't hesitate. Don't sit there. Go and play, because play will really just sort of move things and bring things out.
Yeah.
What do you do to play? When you play, what do you do? Or is it censored?
Yeah, some of it's censored. No, I have grandchildren. I try to get in touch with their world and play with them. I play with my thoughts and my emotions when I'm creating. I used to be pretty active as a surfer and involved in playing with the ocean. When you're surfing, you're dancing with the ocean and having that spirit of joyfulness with that younger part of me that still exists. So that's for me. Anything that I can that I do can become play. When I'm doing my psychotherapy, there are times in very difficult situations where I have to play to get my message across with the client that's there. And play is a very interesting thing there. And it's always worked for me. And I would suggest that for anybody who wants to be creative, play.
And Wendy.
I think for me, it's freedom, to have the freedom to have the time to make art and to think about art and to talk about art. Like right now, we're all playing, right? Yeah, in being free to play and to explore ideas and just think new thoughts, that a lot of people who don't get to do these things, maybe they do it in different other ways. Maybe they do it in surfing or some other activity. But for us, for we artists, it's freedom and play, new ideas.
Right. Well, thank you all so much. Gene, it looks like you're about to say something.
I've always felt that life is so much fuller having a creative outlet.
Yeah, I think you're right. Talk about somebody who's got a lot of creative outlets.
Yeah.
You've got an entire museum. Well, this is, I think, a good time to advertise what's coming up next month. So what's coming up next month?
I'm almost curating an exhibit, a women's exhibit, so I'll let her answer that question, then I'll come back.
Yeah, so I am curating a group exhibition in collaboration with the Dawes Center, which is another art organization in downtown Pomona. So we invited, I think, more than 20 artists, both in our side and their side, all female. So it's gonna be female artist exhibition. The title will just be the female artist exhibition. This is the first time that we are doing that, but we intend to do this every year and make it annual. So this is the first try, and we are looking forward to get more art organizations in downtown Pomona or Pomona Arts Colony to join us maybe in the next year. So
Wonderful.
Right.
And the opening reception is gonna be the second Saturday on January. So everybody, if you guys are free on that day, just come by and check out.
Then in March and April, we're having a big exhibit, Art of the Word, which is going to involve poetry and art and different things. And John and another writer artist is going to be help curating that. And next month, the Art Talk is going to be an artist out of Ireland. I'm doing an electronic catalog exhibit on several Irish artists, and Maurice was the one that curated it. So he's going to be doing the Art Talk next month, and maybe a couple artists from Ireland.
Right. All right. Well, that's great. That's something to look forward to. Thank you to all the artists who came, even to Angelina, who I'm sorry she wasn't able to get on, but I really appreciated what you all said and the insight you brought. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
wonderful.
John. Thanks,
Joy.
Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
nice to meet all of you. It was a wonderful experience. Thanks much.
I agree.
Nice meeting you as well.